Friday's hot topic here on Morning Kick Around. The news broke as we were doing the show on Wednesday morning. All U.S. Open Cup matches to be streamed live on Paramount Plus. This is big news. U.S. Open Cup went a long time without any real significant investment. It's gone through some trials with MLS, pulling their teams and kind of dicing back and forth with how many teams are going to put in here, but all Open Cup matches to stream live on Paramount Plus from the third round to the final, with select matches airing on CBS Sports Network and CBS Sports Golazo Network for this year and next year. Big step forward as far as getting a corporate television partner, but I've also seen the pushback is, people were enjoying the free access to it on YouTube as well.
Yeah, I mean, you could be of two minds, right? You could be, hey, make this as available as possible, and obviously YouTube is a way to do that. And I think that first round was pretty enjoyable, and I think there were some pretty decent numbers of people watching games, and it was that unique thing of amateurs versus pros in every matchup in that round, which I think was a good move.
Yeah.
But of course, if you're talking about growing the tournament, if you're talking about making it bigger, if you're talking about bringing more professionalism to the broadcast so that it feels bigger, right? Well, that's a major thing. Like if you set up a camera in a press box at a high school football stadium where one of the UPSL teams plays or one of the NPSL, that's great if you just see it happen, because otherwise you might not. But it doesn't look good. Right? It doesn't look good relative to what we think of when we talk about watching meaningful soccer matches. So this, with Paramount behind it, should help with that. So and you get studio coverage. I mean, when have we ever had?
That's huge.
Yeah, when have we ever had any broadcaster say, "Yeah, we'll take the Open Cup, and you know what we're going to do? We're going to put studio coverage so that you actually get some context for these games, and we'll preview matchups, and we'll tell you about certain players." Like, I really hope we get a lesson, an education in some of these clubs that are still involved, right? The clubs that you wouldn't know about already if you weren't paying really close attention to lower division soccer in the United States of America. I hope that that's what happens out of this. In fact, I will volunteer to help CBS Sports and Golazo put that stuff together if you want. We could. We're over here. You can ask us to help, of course. But we're going to get things that we've never seen before, I think. And then you can see there the statement, the comment from David Wright, who runs U.S. Soccer's commercial side. Again, the studio coverage, all those kind of things. And in addition to this, there's also just a note, right, that they will provide editorial coverage on CBSSports.com, the Golazo Starting 11 newsletter, and across the Golazo America and CBS Sports Golazo social accounts. Right, so this feels
that's like wall-to-wall coverage, in a sense.
Yeah, it feels like a move forward, right? Now, again, you can be critical of how they've handled this in the past, right? So let's bring this in, Orange and Black Soccer Cast. All these years, the Federation couldn't find a broadcast partner or a presenting sponsor for the oldest, largest tournament in the country, almost like they didn't try. That is, there's an assumption there that there was an appetite for this. And I don't know, like, there's got to be a line, like, we'll broadcast this, or we'll put this on our streaming platform, and we'll give you $10,000. Like, would U.S. Soccer be like, yeah, do that, that's great? That doesn't feel like the number that you should be getting. And again, something is only it's only worth what somebody will pay for it. So if nobody was willing to pay significant money, maybe U.S. Soccer should have just said, fine, take it for free. Right? There are a lot of things in the way the U.S. Open Cup has been handled that are certainly worth criticizing. That might be one of them, but it's kind of hard to know because we have a chicken and egg problem with this competition, Rob.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. It's almost like the pro rel. Which one comes first? Is like, is there interest in it, or isn't there? And is like, how do you generate interest without attention? That puts you in a very difficult chicken and egg sort of a situation. And to those folks who were saying that, I was really enjoying the free coverage on YouTube and this and that, they still have the first and second rounds. This coverage is only from the third round on. And we just watched a very exciting round one. And then next week, starting on Tuesday, it's the second round. So you get still, unfettered access. And that's where a lot of those pro versus amateur matchups
Yeah,
even happen. The
what
third
you
round
do.
is the big one when
Yeah, I
the
look.
USL teams come in.
I know. I kind of imagined us getting, getting to know some of these clubs and some of these players that otherwise wouldn't get a spotlight because CBS is picking this up, and maybe they're going to do some of that editorial stuff ahead of actually broadcasting games. Right? I think that probably part of this, from a CBS perspective, is that when you get to the third round, you're largely going to have stadiums that are set up to do decent broadcasts, that are already set up to do broadcasts, right? Because all the USL games are broadcast. And then obviously you've got MLS teams and MLS second teams that mostly play in good stadiums for soccer, or somewhat good stadiums for soccer, where this, but you want to see enough upsets and enough little clubs that this isn't just, oh yeah, we're going to take the easy way out, start in the third round when most of this is going to be professional. Now I'm looking at the second round schedule,
There's some good games.
and look, you've got Westchester SC against the New York Pancyprian Freedoms. One of those teams has to move on to the third round. So one of those teams is going to be on television, like actual. When I say television, I mean modern, in the modern sense. They won't be on CBS, but they could be on. They'll be on the streaming platform. They'll be available on Paramount Plus. Right? FC Naples is taking on Little Rock Rangers. One of those teams is going to be on TV. Des Moines Menace gets Union Omaha. What if they move on? What if they shock Union Omaha, professional outfit, and the Ringers keep going? That could be a big story. Not that I'm wishing that on my Union Omaha friends, because I do have friends out there. But yeah, this looks, it's progress, right? We can beggars be choosers, I guess, is always the question we come to in these situations.
That's a new one. Also, a couple other interesting stuff. We could probably talk about it more last week. There's a lot of local rivalries here. There's Inter Miami 2 versus Miami FC. There's the in your neck of the woods, Loudon versus Virginia Dream, Chattanooga versus Chattanooga Red Wolves, um, Des Moines Menace versus Union Omaha. So plenty to dig into in the second round of the Open Cup. And this might be opening a whole can of worms, but I do have a question for you.
Okay.
I would say since 2012, since NBC became the home from the English Premier League, the NBC's kind of been had a big gravitational pull of like Americans home for viewing soccer. Do you think with all the coverage that they've added and now do you think CBS and the CBS affiliated networks becomes like the go-to spot for American soccer viewers?
Well, no, I mean, you pointed it out that NBC is the home of the Premier League, and the way that the way that my perception is the most popular league in America remains the Mexican League, largely broadcast, almost universally broadcast in Spanish. I know ESPN took a run at doing some games in English, but that's a Spanish language product, and that's the most popular league in the United States of America. And then you got the Premier League. Right. If we're talking about television ratings and sort of the culture of it, I mean, I'm sure if you got granular, you could argue that MLS is ahead of the Premier League, but the Premier League is not a popular product in the United States of America. And then you get past that and you're talking about Serie A or this or whatever. Champions League is obviously massive, but it's a midweek thing. It happens during the day. Galazzo and CBS have done a great job of collecting soccer stuff, and they've shown a commitment. I'm always wary that the bottom's going to fall out because I've seen plenty of media companies make a commitment to soccer only to change their mind a couple years in when some new executive comes in and goes, "What are we doing with all this?"
Mm.
But for the time being, I mean, I'm the kind of person that has to have all that stuff. I've got season pass, I've got Paramount Plus, I've got NBC, and my wife is going crazy over it. Now I get to say, hey, it's my job. I kind of got to. But a lot of people can't do that.
No. No. Yeah, trying to make up all the reasons why you need four different streaming networks is probably something quite a few people have to deal with that aren't, spending their 9 to 5 talking
And
soccer.
look, here's a reason to learn Spanish. I think if you want to watch U.S. men's national team games that are controlled by the Federation, and obviously this time of the Nations League, which was a Galazzo or CBS Sports production, right? So you needed CBS Sports in order to see those games in English. I don't remember if I looked for them in Spanish, but like when it comes to games the United States Federation controls, you have to have Max now, right? Or you have to watch on Turner if you have a cable
Yep.
subscription, which I happen to have a cable subscription because of bundling. But I know lots of people have gone have no cable subscription and only have the internet, so you have to get the streaming package in order to get the games, unless you want to watch in Spanish, which again, lots of people don't like to do that because they're not following in the same way. It's not the same experience.
Have you gotten to the point where you almost just mute the commentary and you just watch it because you know what's going on, and you just watch it, or is that not an incomplete experience for you?
I think I'm more that I tune it out. Let's say that. My Spanish is not good enough yet to follow every word of Spanish commentary. And what happens is I get hung up on not understanding one sentence. And by that point, they've spoken 8 more sentences. And now I'm trying to catch up. This happens in conversation, too. Like I'm constantly like scrambling to catch up. Oh, as I hit my microphone.
You're
But
getting the
when it comes,
passion. You're getting the passion. You're
yeah,
waving, knocking over the stuff.
mi pasión. Yeah, in terms of the English language stuff, you just kind of tune it out. You just kind of like it's not it's you're watching the game. I'm not really I'm trying not to be influenced by what because I want to be able to appreciate the game on its own terms. But watching it on mute, that removes a sense and takes me away from the game in a way I don't like. And I know this is maybe something we can talk about later on, and I think it has been done with soccer in this country, but the idea of a commenter-less broadcast, just the natural sounds of the stadium, it's never seemed to work. No broadcaster has ever committed to it because I think people just feel weird about it. But if you gave me a clean feed with just the sounds of a stadium and you had it properly mic'd, I might take it.
I think that they have worked on something like that for very big games where the broadcaster has like 8 different multicasts, like the Super Bowl and World Cup finals and stuff like that. I feel like there has been like option 6 is just nat sound, and yeah, you don't want to lose the chants, the sounds, and the whistles. You want to get that experience, but not be influenced by the commentators. That makes sense. That makes sense. So we shall see. U.S. Open Cup continues with the second round next week, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that come Monday. If you hadn't subscribed already, Morning Kickaround on YouTube.com. We're doing great numbers over there, growing this audience and growing this community. So become part of the MK Ultras by subscribing and getting your participation levels up and encouraging your people to subscribe as well. Follow along on social media at MKickaround, X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Write us an email, morningkickaround@gmail.com. And if you have a couple extra dollars, you like what we're doing here, you want to help us pay the bills and become sustainable, and then perhaps grow in the future, coffee.com/morningkickaround.